Hey, this is Callan from Authentic Lifestyle Design, and today I want to talk to you about Spiral Dynamics Stage Red. So, this is our third stage in Spiral Dynamics. So, you might want to watch my introduction to Spiral Dynamics video first, as that one sort of explains the foundations of the model, and this one's going to go into one of the 8 stages, which is Stage Red. So this is our third stage. We went from beige, which was based on survival and pure instinctual kind of drive to keep alive. Then we moved into tribalism, which is stage purple, where all of a sudden we are now surviving in a group. Then from purple, we move into this next stage, which is called stage red. Let's have a little conversation about it. Again, Spiral Dynamics was based off a theory of Clare Graves, and it was adapted by two guys named Don Beck and Chris Cohen. So all sort of means and success and everything goes to them. I'm just simply giving my point of view and my perspective on the model and everything I've personally gained out of it and understood from it. So yeah, understand this isn't the direct source material. I did not create this model. But at the same time, I like to believe I have a pretty sound understanding of it. So let's get into it. Okay, stage red. So this stage focuses on power, might, and force. So we came from purple, where everyone is surviving in a group, they're living in their tribes. Usually the leader of the tribe would be red, because what red does is initially it realizes that it has power over other people, that it can do things. For example, if it goes and gets a rock and it threatens somebody, it can get someone to do something for them. Or if it accumulates a bunch of money or a bunch of resources, then it builds status and it builds more power, more prestige. It feels better about itself. It's trying to become as materially powerful as possible. That's the main thing about red here, because it's gone from beige, just trying to survive, just trying to keep alive, to purple, to this tribal communal way of living, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm sick of that. I want something more. I want power. I want to run this tribe, or I want to do my own thing, or whatever else it is. And they've moved into this next level. Red likes to get what they want by any means, and this includes violence, physical force, or whatever else they have to do. If that means they're the leader of a tribe and this other tribe over the hill have a bunch of resources they want, then Red would have no problem going over there and killing the other tribe for their resources. Red wouldn't really blink an eye about that, because Red is trying to essentially get itself up as high as possible in relation to the people around it. And it does this in a very upfront and forceful way. Red is also highly self-centered, and this is where the ego starts to kick in, because in beige you're just trying to survive. This ego is quite limited. Yet purple, the ego is collective, so you live for the tribe. You're not really living for yourself, you're living for the tribe. At red is where you begin living more for yourself. So the tribe's needs aren't so much as important now as your needs. You like that feeling of being on top, of being the biggest guy in the room, of having the power, of having the influence. You become extremely interested in that at red. And also, the mentality of red is that the strongest person survives. So it's essentially that mentality of, if you're strong, you're alive. If you climb to the top of the hill, you deserve to be at the top of the hill. If you didn't get up there, that's just because you were too weak to get up there. That's sort of how red looks at the world. It's a bit of a dog-eat-dog kind of world. It's essentially, if you didn't have what it takes to get to the top, then you don't deserve to be at the top. And again, red will get there by any means. Red will make it their goal to become as successful in whatever it is as possible, even if that involves killing or stealing or threatening people or whatever else they might need to do. Now, there's also positives to red, of course. It's the level where you learn that you have power, and power is of benefit as well, because you learn that you have control over situations. So whilst red is quite a violent stage, it's not necessarily a bad stage. All of the stages have pros and cons. Like the pros and cons of beige, the pro is obviously you're trying to survive. The con is it's stressful, you don't want to be there forever. And you can definitely hurt people, you're just trying to keep alive. Purple, the pro is now you're surviving in a group and you can pass down knowledge and everything. But a con of purple is that you're very untrusting of outsiders. And for good reason, because what if the leader of a tribe comes along and their leader's red and wants power and wants to come and dominate your tribe? And they try and sweet talk their way into your circle and then they basically take over. Whether that's through violence or through manipulation or whatever it is they try to do. Okay, let's have a look at the pros of red. First one is getting what you want. So short term, red has some pretty good strategies to get what you want. Using force. There's generally two ways to have people follow you. One is through love or trust or mutual benefit. So they're following you because you provide something for them that's highly valuable, be that safety or money or access to certain things. But the other way to lead people is through fear. And red goes for this one probably a lot more at times, which is follow me or die, essentially that mentality. You can come with me and you can follow my way of life, or I'll just kill everyone in your village and take your women, take your children, and we'll assimilate you that way. We'll just basically kill you off and take over. So red is really good at getting what it wants, and it's very upfront about what it wants. It'll tell you. It's not sneaky. It's not trying to manipulate its way into high positions such as the highest stage like orange might. Red's really direct. Red is basically saying, you got stuff, I want it, I'm going to come take it. Give me a wallet. Basically that mentality. You're walking down the street, some guy points a knife at you and says, give me a wallet. That's very red, because they're threatening violence. They're like, here's what I want, if you give it to me, you're okay. If you don't give it to me though, you're in trouble. That's sort of that mentality. Red is wanting to exercise power over you to get what it wants. Another pro is being assertive. Like I said, red is very forward. Red does what red wants to do. And this is useful to do, but of course it can be taken to extremes, and red very often take this to extremes. But having a healthy level of being assertive is quite useful and quite important. And it's one of the key lessons that you'll take away from red, which is when people come back to integrate stages, they usually frown on red because it comes across as very archaic and very violent. But there is some tremendous benefits in here as well. Especially if people are at a high level like green, which is very communal, and they sort of forget about this and they become a little bit too soft. Another one is at red, you really focus on meeting your individual needs. Whilst at purple, it's all for the tribe, and you might suffer for the tribe and all those things, or you might just become a tiny little part of that system trying to survive. At red, you're actually trying to meet your individual needs. You're going, okay, what do I need? What kind of food do I want? What kind of people do I want to be around? What kind of romantic partners do I want? What kind of people do I want to follow me? Where do I want to be? How am I going to do this? And they start actively planning, and they're not just thinking about survival anymore. They're thinking about prosperity. They're thinking about, what do I do not just to survive, but what do I do to actually enjoy my life and to pull as much as I can from the experience? Now, red's not doing that in a conscious way where they're respecting everybody else's wishes. They're doing it in a much more selfish way where red's basically going, I want this and I'm going to go and take it. And if people get in the way, I will remove them. And that's that. But there is a pro of that, again, in moderation, which is you have needs you need to meet. And some people in the world, they suppress their needs for varying reasons. And you can learn a lot from red. As far as, no, you do need that. You do need to go get a better job because you hate your life and the job you have now sucks and it doesn't pay enough money and all the rest of it. You do need to get up. You do need to sometimes go and take what you want. You know, you don't always have to be friendly and ask for things. Sometimes you do need to just go and take something. There is a time and a place for that. There's a time and a place for most things. Red also has a warrior mentality. Very often they're tough. Red can be really, really tough and really, really ruthless. And really, really mentally strong, because when red wants something, it really wants it, and it'll take it to extremes to try and get that. And that might even involve killing people or doing some other bad things in order to get that. They have this warrior mentality. They will fight until the end. They're brave. And if they love people, because obviously red loves people, Red doesn't want to just hurt people for the sake of hurting people. It's usually to meet a certain goal. The people Red loves, they're going to want to protect. And they're going to want to pull them up as well. Red's probably going to want to control them, but it's still going to want to pull them and give them good things. You think of some dictator that's red and wants power and has all the power. He still probably has people around that he loves or that he likes and that he clicks with. And those people are going to get a nice share of all the money and resources and pull that he has as well. Because he's just thinking of that really immediate small group. He's not thinking of the planet or even the whole city. He's just thinking of him who's at the top or near the top and the people around him who are also up there, sort of pooling everything. But they have a warrior mentality. They will fight, and they're tough, and they will fight till the death to get what they want. They will take it as extreme or as hard as possible. Also, people learn that they have an influence because we all start at beige. We're babies. We start at beige, then we go to purple, survival in a group, then we go to red, which we can think of as the terrible twos. Think of the little kids saying no when they learn the word no. And maybe their mum's like, oh, do you want strawberries? Little kid goes, no. Do you want to do this? No. All of a sudden they're like, oh, I have a word which has power over people. So that's a really early introduction into red. They learn that they have that power. They can say yes or no. They can make decisions. And that's a very key indicator of the introduction of stage red because everyone goes through it. They're like, I want this, and this is where you need to teach kids how to share and stuff. I want to go do that. I want this, and they'll chuck a tantrum or they'll do what they can in their power to get their way. So people have influence. Another massive pro of red is the individual ego forms. Because like I said, the ego is very minimal, and by ego I mean sense of self or individuality. That barely exists at beige because you're just acting instinctually. At purple it exists, but it's a collective ego. You're just trying to live for the group survival of your little tribe. At red though, your ego or individual personality really starts to fully form. And all of a sudden you have a personality and you have things you like and don't like and personal traits and all these other complexities that make us human and make us really unique. So there's some of the pros of red. And I think they're strong pros. And I think many people neglect stage red and they have to come back and have a closer look at it. Because there is a lot of benefits to this stage. It's all about learning about power and the dynamics of power. And how you can use power for good. And how red has been used in history for good as well. It has been used to defend people and to do good things. And that warrior mentality, many warriors are celebrated heroes because they did amazing things. So it's to be celebrated. But of course, red being a phase where when taken to extremes can cause a lot of harm, has a lot of cons as well. And here is some of them. So they can be violent and they can harm others to get what they want. This is one in particular, and by hurt others, I mean they can literally kill others and even maybe take pleasure out of that if it's going to get them closer to their goal. Or if they're really angry and they want revenge and they've made their primary goal just to get revenge. Red can get pretty big on revenge. So they can be really violent and they can hurt other people in order to get what it is they want from them. If, like I said, red will become a barrier with force. So if that barrier is a person that doesn't agree with them, won't give them something they want, sometimes they'll use force and just take it if it's within their power. Also, another con of red is they're impulsive and they seek instant gratification, meaning they're highly impulsive. So they want something, they don't want it in a year, they don't want to slowly, gradually plan it all out. They want it now, or they want it really soon. They're going to try to get whatever it is they want as soon as possible, using whatever method will do that. They're not thinking that ethically at this point. They're just saying, I want this, I'm going to go take it, and here's my plan to do it. And that plan could involve hurting people, could involve destroying something, or whatever else. They don't really care so much, as long as they get whatever it is they want. Another thing is red obviously handles conflict quite poorly, because there's some angry people at red, right? Lots of angry people. And when they get angry, they get violent. Because all of a sudden it's, I don't like you, and all that red flare comes out, and all of a sudden they're acting from a mentality of anger and they can't control themselves. because they're not thinking long term about, oh, but if I hit this person, this could happen and all the rest of it, and that would hurt them and their family would not like that and such and such. No, they're just in the moment of, I don't like this person, I'm going to hurt them. Or they're in a conflict and they can't talk their way out of it, they're going to use physical force, they're going to use their power and all the rest of it, if that's within their capabilities. Red is going to use that power, and for that reason, they're not going to handle conflict very well. And even then, people at higher stages, because like I said in my introduction video, when people get stressed, they move down stages. When someone gets stressed enough to where they move down to red, all of a sudden that's where they can snap, and or maybe when they were handling a conflict quite well, at red is where they snap, and that's where you get the temper tantrums and the angry reacts and the meltdowns and all the rest of it. So if you ever see someone just snap and they're angry and they hit someone or whatever else, chance is they've moved down to this stage. And if they're just doing it out of survival, they've moved down even further to beige. This is where there's an intention. It's, I'm going to get you and all that. And they're just running and they're attacking and they're not really thinking about it. They're thinking really short term of, I'm going to get you, and they're doing that. But that's a very short term focus, and obviously has consequences, but they're not thinking about the consequences. They're just thinking of the short term. I'm going to punch this guy because he did this to my wife, or he did this to my friends, or whatever it is that happened. They're pure aggression, pure power, pure force, might. Another one is they like high levels of emotional control, which kind of ties in because red is really impulsive, meaning they decide, I'm going to do this, and they basically go and do that, and sometimes it's really hard for them to see reason. For example, if some gangster beat up their friend, then they're going to go, right, that guy's dead, I'm going to go after that guy, and then they'll go and beat the guy up or maybe kill him. And then all of a sudden his other gangster mates, who are probably also at red, they're going to get really mad, and that's how you get a lot of gang wars and you get a lot of hate. Or also how you get a lot of real wars, or how a lot of wars have happened in history. It's somebody kills somebody, then somebody reacts really angrily at that and goes and kills one of them, and so on, and it escalates into a whole war. It can get really crazy, and there's been a lot of battles like that over various things. Resources, even women. There's been a lot of wars over women, about two men, or even sometimes two women that wanted to get with somebody, but they couldn't, so maybe they poisoned the other one or whatever else in order to get them. And sometimes they get found out, and other times, because the world's not inherently good, it's all balanced, there's good and bad. Sometimes red do use power and force to get what they want, and it works. It doesn't always end badly for them. Sometimes they actually do get what they want. And the last one is they often lack empathy. So if they're mad and they're going, I'm going to go and take that guy's money, and I'm going to go and break into his house and take his safe and take his life savings, they're not really thinking, oh, but that person has a family and that family's probably going to suffer. And if I break that guy's arm trying to break into his house, say if I break his arm and beat him up and put him in the hospital, then that guy can't go to work and he can't make money. They're not thinking anything along the lines of that. They're thinking really short term. They're thinking, I want to go into this guy's house and I want to take his money because I want to do this with it, and I'll have a cool pile of money and I'll be so cool. So you got to look at it like that too. They do lack a bit of empathy. They have trouble putting themselves in other people's shoes. And that's something they really kind of have to move up the spiral to develop. They can to an extent, but they can't really. They can think, oh yeah, that would have sucked if I came in and beat myself up like that. But they can't really relate to it. If they went and shot somebody, they could probably understand that that person's family was sad, but it'd be more of a logical, oh, that person's family's probably sad. They wouldn't really be feeling it. They wouldn't really be feeling into, oh my God, that person's family, they're going to be shattered and really feeling that. They're just kind of logically, yeah, well, they were in my way and that, because it's super narcissistic, egocentric. Oh, yeah, well, it sucks that I had to kill that guy, but he was in my way and it's the only thing I could have done. I had to do it in order to get what I wanted. And for them, that's a bigger deal than that other guy's happiness. Okay, let's go into some examples of stage red. First one I want to talk to is warriors. So the examples I've got here is Vikings is one. And think about the Vikings. They sailed from Scandinavia over to Europe. And what do? They'd raid and pillage. They'd say, right, here's a nice castle. It looks pretty easy to get into. Let's go break in and take what we need and kill whoever we have to kill in order to go and get all this stuff. And then a bunch of soldiers would come and be like, well, they signed up for this. They signed up to protect this gold and we want it, so we've got to kill them to get it. And that's what they did, more often than not. So that's a perfect example of red. And then what did they do? They went back and partied and celebrated with their friends and like, yeah, we showed them. We got them. Look at all this gold. Yeah. Right. So it became like this huge kind of thing. And they were celebrated for that. And being a warrior was celebrated. Spartans similar. All that was celebrated. Conflict was celebrated. And for the Mongols, the same thing. They'd rock up to a village and they'd be like, hey, we kind of want your village. And if you don't join with us, we're going to kill you and we're going to take it. Because they're not thinking, oh, those poor people who were going and taking their village. They're thinking, nope, we're building an empire. We want that land. We're willing to, make a deal with you and that ends with us having the land and you still living here and not dying. But if you don't agree with our terms, we're going to kill you and we're going to take it. And we're going to take all your women and children and such and all the rest of it. And we're going to convert them to our ways or whatever they wanted to do. So they're 3 examples of warriors. Then we've got power-hungry dictators. So there's been plenty of these in the world. Think of like maybe Saddam Hussein, for example, Pol Pot in Cambodia. These people that resulted in the deaths of so many individuals that were usually power-hungry and they weren't really looking after their countries. They were just pooling resources to make themselves bigger and more powerful and more prestigious and all the rest of it. Whilst usually the people they governed or they ruled over were usually suffering, and most people in that country or that place were not living a very high quality of life. And then you got bad kings, which basically did the same thing. They'd pool all the resources and everything to themselves. They'd climb to get as much stuff and as powerful as possible. And they didn't really care as much about the people. They didn't really put themselves into the people's shoes that they look after. They kind of just looked after themselves and their associates. Now, another example that's more relatable today is young children. We call this a terrible twos, when a kid learns to say, no, I'm not going to do that. Or, Tom, can you come over here? And Tom goes, nah, not going. I want chocolate. Give me chocolate. So the parents that succumb to that, it's actually really bad because that child's saying, okay, this red strategy is working, and that can stop them sometimes from evolving to a higher stage. Because I want chocolate. Oh, yes, Tom, here you go. Here's some chocolate. And then if Tom doesn't get it, he chucks a huge tantrum, and a mum or dad who's weaker is going to succumb to that tantrum and just give him what he wants. So it's important that when a child is at red or someone is at red, you do teach them that they can't just smash their way into getting everything they want. They can't just use force and power and might to get what they want, especially in today's world. There's consequences for that stuff. Another example I wrote, because I thought it was fun, is Scar from The Lion King. Because look at him, what did he want? He wanted to be the king, that's it. He wanted to be like the top lion. He wanted to be on top of all of it, to run it all. So what did he do? He killed his brother, Mufasa. And then, basically after that, he was the king. And Simba ran away and he had the whole Pride Lands to himself. And then what did he do? He hoarded all the resources and the money and the women and everything else in The Lion King. He looked after the few people at the top while most people suffered and animals starved and such and such. And that was his strategy. And then at the end, that didn't work for him because the hyenas, who were his top associates at the time, he tried to rat him out because Red often will rat people out to try and save itself. And that resulted in him being basically taken out by his subordinates, and they ate him, I guess. So Scar's a good example of like a pure red, or a lot of the Disney villains are good pure reds because they just want power for the sake of having power, which is very much so what Red does. And another example is gangster top culture, not kind of the pop culture hip-hop side of things, more so the pure gang of, we're a gang, this is territory, we want to expand our territory and own as much stuff as possible. And again, why do that? Because they want the pool of resources, they want money, and they want women, and they want nice places and nice cars and all the rest of it, so they can flex to all their other gangster mates and other people and show off how successful they are. And they're willing to shoot a couple of people and to rob some places and to do some other unethical things in order to achieve that. So gangster culture is a good example of red. So there's a couple of examples. Now let's talk about how to transcend stage red and move to stage blue. So stage blue is all about sort of, think white picket fence 1950s culture. So, you live in a nice little house with your wife, and this is how things are done, and this is your religion, and this is all the rest, and you've got all these customs and hierarchies and stuff that your culture, and they're the right thing to do, and that's how we should live. So red, because it's quite chaotic and quite impulsive, benefits from the order that you get moving to stage blue. And how can you do that? One thing you can do is you can start thinking about the welfare of other people. Not just the people you personally know, but the whole community around you. So blue will go, well, if I went and robbed that bank, that would lead to a lot of people suffering because I'd hurt them. Or if I went and killed that guy over there because he has something I want and took his land and killed his family, that probably wouldn't be very good to be that guy. And it's probably not doing my community any good if I do that. And they're starting to think along these lines. Also, try to understand the need for rules, hierarchies, punishment, and systems. We'll start with rules. Red goes, stuff the rules. I'm going to break whatever rules I need to get what I want. But moving into blue, red will say, hang on, rules exist for a reason. The society we have wouldn't exist and it wouldn't work without rules. It'd just be a bunch of people all recklessly killing each other and pillaging for land and all the rest, and essentially being at red and being without rules. So then red moving into blue says, hang on, there's actually a purpose for rules, and I can live a much more fulfilling life if we have some rules in place that keep us safe. So my family, for example, there's police officers, and we have a government now, and if someone tries to break into my house, they'll actually go to jail and they'll get in trouble because we have a system set up that helps with that. Then we've got hierarchies. It's okay, well, it makes sense that there's people up the top here, and it makes sense that I'm not at the top of that, and I probably shouldn't push my way to the top because the people at the top probably know what they're doing and they're actually trying to help us and all the rest of it. They're not just greedy, and I'll try and now climb my way up. They realize that punishment's important because if you do something wrong, Red's very aware of punishment. Red's like, well, if I go and kill this guy, I'm going to go to jail, and that might stop them from doing it. But at this point, they start to look at the system collectively, at the community, and they look at why punishment is actually useful and what the benefit of having something like punishment is. Because now they're like, all right, if people break the law, they're going to get in trouble, they're going to go to jail, or whatever else is done to them in that culture. And they start to see benefit to that because they're like, that keeps everyone in line, that keeps everyone being productive and working together well. And that stops someone from flipping out and beating up someone on the street just because they don't like them. If they did that, now there's consequences. And then systems. They understand the benefits of there being a government, a police force, fire department, hospitals, all the rest of it. And none of these systems would really work without some governing body. It'd be like having a body without a brain. It'd just be chaos. It'd be heaps of people doing their own things and nothing would work. And blue, especially from our history of a lot of red, they really started to look at that and they're like, well, how do we do this? Because red can work in a small community, but once you've got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or however many people all living together, they're not going to be able to live together practically and be organized without some kind of system. So blue starts to understand the need for that as well. Another one is to aim to work more effectively with your community. So now you're not just working for yourself. You're not saying, all right, I'm going to accumulate as much stuff as possible and I'm going to do that by any means necessary and I don't care who I hurt. Now they're going, okay, I actually want to be a part of this community because now the pendulum has swung from individual to group again. So beige was individual, then purple, our tribalism, was group, then red, which is power, is individual, then blue, which is community, goes back to group. So now you're thinking, okay, how can I play a part in this community and how can I play my role and how can I benefit everyone's lives here and improve this system we have? So now you're starting to work more effectively with that community when you move into blue. So someone at red could say, okay, well, what can I do that's actually going to help people that isn't just for my own self-interest? It's actually going to have a benefit and help other people as well. And the final one I have here is learn to put some of your impulses and desires aside for the greater good. Now this means someone cuts in front of you in line and you go, fire out. You want to beat him up. You want to hit him and grab him and say, hey, what'd you do? Right? Then all of a sudden you go, well, maybe not. Maybe that's not the best approach, to just beat someone up for doing something. Right? All of a sudden it's the greater good. It's not just what's the best thing for me, regardless of what suffering that causes to anyone else. Now it is, what can I do that's going to have a positive impact on my community, on all of us here, so that we can all live better lives and we can all help each other. And these hierarchies and systems we've built can improve and become better. So when you look at blue like that, it's a tremendous step from red. And you can see this, say someone's a gangster, they're really violent and angry, and they went through the whole money thing and the power thing, and then they got hurt or something, they went to jail for a decade or whatever it is. Then they came out, and all of a sudden they're saying, well, I'm not really interested in my own self-validation anymore and trying to take everything and become this kingpin. Now I just kind of want a family, I want a nice house, I want to get a job that I enjoy and do something that helps the community, and maybe I can become someone with some status someday, doing something positive, and I can have a positive effect on the community. And I'm relatively aligned with the beliefs of this community, and I want to do my thing and do my part. So it's a phase that people can move into. And it's a useful phase because you become productive. You want to be a part of something bigger than yourself. That's moving into blue. So you've moved from wanting to take everything by force and power and to boost your own ego as much as possible. Now, not so much. Now you sort of want to create the best standards of living and the best life you can, but at the same time you don't want to hurt other people around you, and you want to help other people to mutually do that. So, I hope you enjoyed my video on Spiral Dynamics Stage Red in a nutshell. If you did, I've got 5 more of these to make because there's 5 more stages in the spiral, plus many other videos that I make. So if you gained value, can you please like the video, comment, subscribe to the channel, share it with anyone that you find of my interest. I enjoy making these Spiral Dynamics videos because it's a model I'm passionate about. And apart from that, I will talk to you soon and enjoy the rest of your day.